running our business, our margins are tight, our cash flow is tight, and I like to have paid for an item before we sell it. I don't like to have to sell it to make the money to pay for it.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep Pat and Dal waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Hello, Dal.
Hi, Patrick.
Welcome to Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast.
Where?
In Chicago, on the Yak Channel Podcast Network.
Oh, that answers both my questions of where.
Oh, nice. I almost feel like we shouldn't put that at the beginning, even though most professional podcasts do, but because you just heard the theme, you know, all that stuff, and James Van also just told you who we are and everything, so I like to mention it, plus Yak Channel isn't in our theme anywhere, so it's nice to emphasize that.
It is nice. It's a nice thing to do.
But while this is a comics business podcast about the trials and tribulations of running a comic shop in today's economy, and it is also about comics, as, you know, we are comic fans, which is why we do this in the first place.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something that we're not going to talk about this episode.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Hitler.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that? I assume.
It wasn't my plan.
Okay, wasn't mine either.
Okay.
But also, Avengers Infinity War.
Okay.
You know why we're not going to talk about it?
Because most people are hearing this just a few days after it came out, and they might not have seen it.
No, I don't care about that.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about it later in a Patreon exclusive episode of Contest of Challengers that you can only listen to if you are a patron of ours on patreon.com/challengers.
Bad news for people who are not Patreon subscribers. I got thoughts on Infinity War.
Our first ever Patreon exclusive episode.
Here's what's great about the Patreon exclusive episode. That is honest to God, hand to God, swear it to Thanos, swear it on your mother, the first time you and I will be talking about Avengers Infinity War after we've seen it.
Yes, but that's kind of why.
Yeah.
I didn't want to start talking about it.
I assumed.
I wanted to
save it for the
have
podcast.
It be fresh. Yeah.
Is one of Patrick's seldom used now, but frequently used in the past catchphrases.
Well, I mean, I said that a lot in the store, and then we never remember what we were talking about, so we don't come back to it. So let me ask you this question. Now, I've been doing more research into Patreon, and Patreon exclusive content is a big deal, and that's what a lot of content creators push other people to do.
Sure.
Now, I would never want to do, say, a Patreon exclusive episode about a major change in the industry.
No.
Like, nothing that we would normally talk about in the contexts and confines of running the business on the podcast. But something like this?
Yeah, my feeling as both a content producer and a content consumer is that Patreon exclusive stuff should never be anything that's in the mission statement of your Patreon. Like your Patreon, what you're making should be something that is, once it's funded, is kind of out there for free. But if you're a Patreon subscriber, you should get stuff above and beyond that. So if your thing is like, I want to fund a YouTube cooking show, those YouTube episodes should be free.
Yeah.
But if you want like behind the scenes videos, maybe that's on Patreon.
Sure.
If you want like a beer tasting show, that would be on Patreon. But the cooking show that you are getting money for should be something that is produced for free. That is not a subscription item. That is something else.
Agreed.
So like people who do comic strips that I follow, the comic strip is free. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, you might get bonus strips that are only available on the site, on Patreon, not something you would get on their normal service, but their normal service you're still getting for free.
And I don't want to make this a regular part of our workload. It's not going to be X number of Patreon episodes per month or whatever. But when the
stars align.
Yeah, something like that.
When you and I have time and something that is worth talking about for more than 10 minutes.
Or not. I mean, it doesn't. That's one of my things about it. It doesn't have a time limit.
Right, I just mean anything less than 10 minutes is something like, you could just plug that into an episode. That seems like...
okay.
That's not extra content. That's
fair.
just cut footage.
Wow, you gave me a perfect segue, but we're not done with the Patreon stuff, so we'll leave it. So my question to you is going to be, at what paid level would you put these bonus episodes? And I already have an answer in mind.
I don't 100% remember our tiers. What are our tiers?
Oh, we have 3 tiers. $1, $2, $5.
Okay, what is $1 right now? Like, what do you... Is that just like a thank you?
Yeah.
And then $2
Not even a thank you. It's an implied thank you.
Yeah, that's them. That's someone thanking us with $1.
Yeah, there you go.
What is $2?
$2 gets you early access to podcasts.
Okay, and $5 is
unedited
on episode thank you.
Yeah.
So $2.
I was going to say anything at all.
Okay, that's fine.
Anything.
I don't think there's a huge difference between $1 and $2.
Yeah.
Although if we do this regularly. And regularly doesn't have to mean on a set schedule, but just often enough that it's not like a total surprise. I would say $2 because that's a good incentive to get someone to bump up their contribution from $1 a month to $2.
Yeah.
You're getting extra content. I'm not guaranteeing we'll do one
I
every month.
I initially thought either A, the $2 level, or B, build a new $3 level. But...
yeah, I think the $2 level, because essentially that's what people are already getting at the $2 level, is additional content in the form of unedited episodes.
But they're already getting that. I don't know. I just think that if anybody's willing to pay us for this, plus,
sure.
As you pointed out, if we start doing it on any type of regularity, which I got to tell you, it's not in my plans because
you don't like doing them.
I'm already dreading this Avengers episode because that's a whole nother batch of time recording and a whole other batch of time editing. Well, on top of,
I guess,
what we already do.
The way I would think of the bonus episodes is in the same way as the unedited episodes, where it's not, this is a scrubbed, polished episode for public consumption. This is, here's some raw audio. So I would not necessarily, and obviously you can feel differently and make your own decision, I would not go to as much trouble editing the Avengers episode as you would this episode.
I was already planning a different theme song for it.
Because you can plug a different theme song into it. I guess what I'm saying is, people listening to this episode, maybe people who are stumbling upon it for the first time or hearing a random thing, the people who are hearing Patreon episodes have already basically gotten on board.
Right.
So I don't think you would, and this is going to sound crude, I don't think you have to impress them as much.
Well, definitely if they listen to the podcasts through there, we won't, because that's the warts and all version of what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
okay with that.
No intro, no outro, no audio drop-ins, and all of the ums and ahs left in.
Sure.
And as you say, if they're okay with it,
I think so. Fine. That's how I view it.
And I feel like doing the first 7 minutes of this episode is talking about a thing that most of you aren't going to get to hear.
Maybe this incentivizes those people. Maybe realize that there was an additional level of contests and challengers they could be participating in. And now that they do, they're like, wait, what? And so then they rush to Patreon on their phone. They're closing this podcast app. They don't even hear me saying this because they're too busy at a web page or downloading the Patreon app, making their voices heard.
And that's what's important in today's government.
Paying money? Yeah, you're probably right.
I meant as a non-participant. I wasn't going to say spectator, but that's not it. As a constituent, I guess.
Yeah. You're a participant. You participate in the level of democracy that you're legally allowed to.
I got to tell you, that Mike Mignola Batman statue, pretty great.
Isn't it great? What Patrick's referring to is I just got the full-size, full-color Mike Mignola Batman statue. They had made, as part of the Batman Black and White line, a statue, and they actually, one of the few they went back and did another edition of for people who missed out on the first one. But then the Black and White line is a smaller line of statues, like 7 to 8 inches. The full color Batman statue for Mike Mignola is A, full color. B, I think it's like 12 inches plus.
I thought it was like 18.
That's
way more than a foot right there.
I have the box because I didn't put it away yet. 12 inches tall.
Okay. Let me see the picture. I want to see what he's standing on the base.
It's just a Batman round base.
Okay.
Because it's going to go with, like, if you look at the bottom, there's the Greg Capullo one. I guess they probably all have a similar base. Like a different bat, but a similar base.
Yeah, see, I saw the Greg Capullo one because it's the Dark Knight's Metal one, and I thought, no, thank you.
The thing about the Mike Mignola statue, both in the full color and black and white edition, and the main reason I got any of them, but this one because it's new, is that there's a way that they did the paint job on, again, the full color and the black and white, where from a distance it looks like a drawing.
It looks two-dimensional.
It looks completely two-dimensional, but when you get up close, you're like, wait, there's sculpted detail as well as essentially like an ink wash on it to make it look three-dimensional. Like, it's so strange. I remember seeing it for the first time, the black and white edition, before it had been released, was being shown off at a Wizard World Chicago, I think. I don't think it was even C2E2. I think it was before that, but I could be wrong. But it was at a convention, and they had one in the display case. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. They have like a little cardboard mock-up of what the statue's going to look like, a little two-dimensional, like they printed out and put it on like foam core. And I got closer, I'm like, oh, this is a whole statue. How did they do that? It's a very cool visual effect. It's worth checking out both a picture online, and then maybe if someone's done an unboxing on YouTube, check that out. Or what I might do, if you're hearing this, you can shoot video for Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I'll shoot a little Instagram video for the Challengers account.
Okay.
If you can go and check it out there.
That'll be available on the paid tier of Instagram.
Exactly. My paid Snapchat.
Look at how just goofy elongated those thighs are.
Oh, it's such a weird design.
Like his knee is 3/4 of the way down his leg.
I'll be honest, I didn't get it because of Batman. I got it because of Mike Mignola.
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome Mike Mignola statue that just happens to be of Batman.
I have never been a huge Mike Mignola fan.
Uh-huh.
I have nothing against him, but I've never been like,
Sure.
oh my god, that guy's the best.
And I'm not a hardcore fan. I don't need to own a ton of Mignola stuff, although I do own hardcover books and now a statue.
But just looking at that, it's
just so neat. It's just such a cool
really
object.
well done.
I was really happy
I'm looking
with
at it thinking, I should get that. And then I realized, no, I already have like 5 Batman black and white statues.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I get, and then I'm like, I gotta get all of these. Or a few things I won't get, because I know that as soon as I get one, I'll get all of them. But this is such a hyper-specific thing that there's no chance of me getting another statue like this, or another thing in the line where I'm like, oh, I gotta get that. No. It's one statue. It looks neat.
And there's no reason for them to ever do, like, oh, Mike Mignola Superman, because he's never done Superman.
Right.
Well,
he has. Yeah, you could...
Cosmic Odyssey.
Yeah, if they pulled some stuff in Cosmic Odyssey, like if they did a Forager, I'd be all over that. Oh my god, I would snap that up. Or a very sad Jon Stewart. Like, either of those would be fine. But I don't feel like, that or like a Highfather are due out anytime soon. Probably not a line of statues DC Direct is going to be initiating.
Probably not. And I feel like this one came out pretty quickly, too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the code is on it, but I feel like I ordered it a while ago. Yeah, the code's not on it.
No.
Yeah, DC Direct has gotten a little better.
You did order it long enough ago that when it came in, you're like, oh, right, I ordered this.
Yeah, it was like a little gift to myself. It was like, oh, yes, I did order that. I forgot that I'd done that.
Like, next week's invoice shows a Captain America figure I may or may not have ordered for myself back in June of last year.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't remember it at all.
Well, maybe we'll have it for the shelf if you didn't order it for yourself.
Yeah, we'll see. Plus, I mean... At the point that I ordered it, that's what he looked like in his last movie.
Yeah, Civil War era Captain America.
Yeah, that's how he looks like now, but we're not talking about that in this episode.
No, saving it for later.
So, Dal, what are we talking about in this episode now that we've wasted 13 minutes of people's time?
You would say wasted. I would say...
Shilled.
Shilled. Shilled is a good word. I would say... enveloped people in the Contest of Challengers environment so that they can really... Now we get to the meat of it and they are ready to go.
I'll tell you one thing I've always wanted to do as I stall a little more and give you more time to think, unless, of course, you have something ready. I always wanted to do like a little behind-the-curtain kind of thing of getting and sorting the new books for the week, but there's no way that works in audio. Mainly because I get them by myself. And
would the audio just be a podcast that you're listening to? You just drop that in. Here's what it sounds like.
No, it'd be an episode of
Surviving Creativity.
No, I mean the getting part would be me listening to Doctor Who audio adventures.
Sure. And then you can hear the gentle rustle of someone eating Fritos.
Yeah, but I meant like specifically the warehouse experience.
Oh,
so you can hear like a lot of forklifts backing up, and this is usually how much verbal contact I have with another human being at the warehouse. Diamond? Yeah.
So let's dial this all the way back, because I think this is an interesting topic I wouldn't have expected. So let's talk about from start of the day to end of the day, Tuesday. Tuesdays is when we get the new books. The whole process of us receiving the new product for the week is on Tuesday. Books go on sale Wednesday when we open at 11, but by that point, we've already put them on the shelf, pulled them for subscribers, set aside special orders for non-club subscribers.
Read all of your personal copies.
I try to. I mean, I...
No, I mean, the person listening, we read their books.
Yeah, I try to. It's tough. I mean, there's a lot of them. We got a lot of subscribers, but I do try to read every individual copy that goes in the boxes.
Yeah. Do you do like one word balloon per issue, then you move to the next one?
No, I read each one all the way through, Patrick, because I care about our subscribers.
Wow, okay.
And that attention to detail is why we've won the Eisner.
And plus,
that was part of our submission packet, is I read everybody's comics.
It really puts you in their shoes because it's a shared experience, because it's not like you saw the same movie at a different theater on a different date. It's like, I read this exact copy of the comic you read.
When someone comes in and wants to talk about the books they've read, I want to make sure that I'm talking to them about the books they've read, because I read those exact books.
I just don't think most people realize that you only read comics on the toilet.
I mean, not one toilet. There's a lot of toilets, but, I mean, yeah, just toilets.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So, what I was hoping to accomplish for people would be more specifically the things outside of the store, because...
Sure. Let's paint a picture with words.
I don't know that they would... I mean, they can imagine things in the store because they've been to the store.
Well, I mean, so let's talk about it from first minute of Tuesday for work for us. We get to the store.
Well, at what point have you printed the pulls list?
Yeah, I mean, there's prep stuff that gets done Monday night, but I mean, technically there's prep stuff that gets done the previous Wednesday.
Sure.
So I'm talking about just Tuesday.
But I mean, I think like the polls list is an important part of the...
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll do the polls list up last thing Monday night.
Okay, what is a polls list?
The polls list is our list, our hard copy list of all of the books coming in the next day on Tuesday that we need to set aside for subscribers, both in the bulk, how many copies of Batman, and in the specific, what does this subscriber get? How many books are they getting? Because all of that stuff, the receiving is done on Tuesday. So when we come in Tuesday morning, the subscriber list, the polls list, if you will, is already set aside. The totals aren't done yet, because at that point I'm still waiting for people to give me last-minute additions and subtractions.
Of which there always are.
There always are. And since we're printing out a hard copy list, I don't want to have to adjust those totals
multiple times.
Yeah,
I don't want to see a 17 crossed out to an 18, crossed out to a 19, crossed out back to an 18.
Yeah, which has happened occasionally. So sure. I try and hold off until essentially we're just a few hours away from receiving the book. So we get in 11 a.m., turn the lights on, open the store. The pulse list is already done, just waiting for me to do final totals. And then what are you doing, Patrick?
I go to the bank to get a cashier's check, a certified check for Diamond Comics. Because we like paying things that way, because Diamond has a habit of holding on to checks for a while. And
so we like to have the money actually be deducted from our account when we think it's going to be.
Yeah, because it's easy to look at a total and say, why is there that much money in there? It doesn't make sense, because there's a difference between the real-time total in the bank account versus what our spreadsheets tell us.
Sure.
And I don't like waiting for Diamond, because it's in the past they will have had multiple checks waiting at one time, and that just throws everything off. So I prefer doing everything COD.
Sure.
Like I prefer when we order from other distributors to pay.
Yeah, let's just
when we
pay
place
you now
the order
instead of in 30 days.
I don't like terms. It is a thing that I'm sure a lot of other retailers prefer. I don't.
Sure.
Running our business, our margins are tight, our cash flow is tight, and I like to have paid for an item before we sell it. I don't like to have to sell it to make the money to pay for it.
Could you ever see a point where we have enough cash on hand that you'd feel comfortable doing terms?
If there's one thing the last 10 years have shown me, the answer is no.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to. I mean,
I'm not saying like this is something we're working towards or this is something that will happen
right.
soon. I just mean completely hypothetically, would there be?
Are you asking if we had enough cash flow, would we go to terms?
Would you feel comfortable doing that, or would you still not feel comfortable?
It's not so much do I feel comfortable. I prefer it the other way. And as a matter of fact, if we have that much cash on hand, then I don't mind paying outright.
Okay, I guess that's my point. Is like, is it a matter of margins are tight, so you can't know for sure if
no,
that money's
it would
still
be
there?
the same thing. It would still bother me saying, why is there a $5,000 discrepancy versus what the bank says we have versus
Okay.
what I think we have. And what I think we have is always lower because of
Sure.
the specific way I do our books.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, important
Sure.
for us to not to get super crazy. Like, for example, if you were to look at our accounts, our default account today, you would see that there is like negative $800. But if you looked at that account has $20,000 in it.
Sure. It's just that money's spoken for.
So I mean,
Right.
there's things are earmarked or put aside
Sure.
or what have you.
Anyway, so Tuesday morning, you go to the bank, you get a cashier's check for the exact amount that the diamond total is for the week.
Yes.
Then what?
Then I get in my car,
Okay.
drive out to Elk Grove Village.
Hold on real quick. What are you listening to at this point?
It changes. Mostly
What
my
did you listen
iPod
to
and
this
show.
Tuesday?
I listened to the second disc in the Seventh Doctor audio adventure, Nightshade.
Okay.
It wasn't that great.
So Seventh Doctor and who?
Ace.
Ace, okay.
So I drive out to Elk Grove Village. There is what we call an Expeditors, which is a drop-off facility
Yeah. Very large warehouse.
where rather than get our books UPS and always be at their mercy as to when they come, we are fortunate to be in a city that is close to an Expediter.
Yeah. And lucky enough that the size of our weekly order has not, to this point, knock wood, been too large for Patrick's car.
Yeah, initially when we were starting Challengers and I was getting a new car, I wound up getting a minivan because I was expecting us to need all that extra space. And we didn't.
I think that's fine.
No, I'm not complaining. I would rather not drive a minivan.
Sure.
I drove that thing for a long time until it
It's true.
went away. I'm much happier with the vehicle I have now.
Yeah.
So it's called Giadis Wilson's. It used to just be called Wilson's, but Giadis bought it and they're an international company. And I go to the loading dock and I back my car up the top of the ramp, and then I go in and wait in the cage until somebody allows me into the main warehouse floor where there's stacks and stacks of books. They're so busy now that the comics used to be more wide open and in a bigger area, and we were always in this one designated spot.
Mm-hmm.
Now this week, now in the last couple months, everything is like grouped together, and we're always somewhere else. And I always have to look, and like there was one week we were in two separate piles because I'm like, wait a minute, that's only half our stuff. And there was another pile. So the diamond boxes are stacked together in a couple piles.
And there's a lot of different stores that pick up locally.
Yeah.
So the boxes all have individual labels, and there's
we are 017. That is our designation for Wilson's.
Yeah, and the boxes themselves have diamond labels. So if there's ever a confusion about it, you can look and see like the address of the store that's supposed to receive them, their account number. So it's very clear whose boxes are supposed to be whose, and there's a list of how many boxes each store is supposed to get. So it's very easy to make sure that you're getting the right number of
boxes.
boxes.
I mean, that's the first thing I do is go find our pile and count how many boxes there are.
Right.
You'll hear me say Wilson's all the time when in fact it's Giadis and Giadis Wilson's.
But you've been picking up there or like been involved with that place for decades.
Yeah, I mean it's moved locations and whatnot, but it used to be called Wilson's, so it's always Wilson's to us, even though it's Giadis.
Like there's plenty of old terminology we use from where we used to work or systems we used to use that we don't anymore. Like we still call the monthly catalog the order pack because that was what it was called when we used Contract. It was an order pack.
Yeah.
Like that was the file.
Yeah.
That's Comic Suite doesn't use that term, but internally we still use it as shorthand. Things like pulls list, like it's just what we use.
Right.
Other stores will call it other things.
So then I go find the manifest, and it's alphabetical by store name, and I find us, and it shows how many boxes we have. It's broken down individually. It has the weight for all of them, and I'll make a count and make sure that they match, sign off on it, and then deposit my check into the receptacle for the checks. This last week, somebody had to watch me do it, which is a new rule, but there's always new rules like that. I think that basically there's always a new rule for picking up when somebody fucks everybody else up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Frequently there's been, not frequently, but occasionally, but repeatedly, they have to have somebody in the past look at your check total and compare it to the manifest to make sure that they match, because a store had been dropping off checks, but for a less amount.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get away with something.
Yeah. And then they did it where only one person is allowed in at a time, because I think somebody's boxes went missing when they check all the boxes in ahead of time. And if you're short a box, that means it either like migrated to a different pile or somebody else took it.
Sure.
And there have been times where I'm going through the count and I find in the middle of our boxes a box for a completely different store.
Mm-hmm.
Or a box of ours is like it must have been just far enough away from our pile that somebody from Wilson's just moved it over to the wrong one. Like, oh, like we're short one, but it's right over there.
Right.
Like at a pile of someone that hadn't come pick up yet, so obviously it wasn't them.
Sure.
So things like that happen. And for security reasons, they want to make sure that, because we're not wearing orange vests or hard hats, they want to make sure that we're not going anywhere where we can get hurt.
Yeah, there's basic safety precautions you need to take inside a warehouse like that. There's a lot of heavy machinery moving around and very heavy equipment and boxes that are on those machines. So, yeah.
I've talked to some retailers that say they're not allowed to use the ramp.
Okay.
I used to be able to open and close the garage doors on my own.
Sure.
Which is a lot easier, because when you open the garage door, it says that my car's right there.
Right.
So I get to load in. Then it became, hey, only Wilson's personnel can push that button. Or occasionally, if they're busy, they'll just say, yeah, you can do it.
Right.
Or, like, basically, if, like, they're in-house security people, and I mean safety people, not security people. Safety people aren't around, they're like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want.
Sure.
But then I will... They have a cart there, usually, that I use. Mm-hmm. I have a dolly in my car that's foldable, but can only hold, like, 4 to 5 boxes maximum, and we usually have double that.
Yeah.
So I bring their cart in to the cage, load it up, and if I'm allowed to use the door, I'll use the door, or the big loading door. Mm-hmm. If not, I'll just go through the door where I was anyway.
Yeah.
Unload from the cart to my car, go and return the cart, mm-hmm. wave goodbye to anyone who's there. Mm-hmm. On the rare occasion that we have too many things to fit on the cart, or somebody else is there using the cart and I don't get it, it's extra awkward, because I used to try to pull everything out into the cage area so I can just get it from there.
Sure.
But I would occasionally use a box to prop it open the door, and then you get yelled at because you're not supposed to prop the door open. But then it'd be like, well, then I still need to come right back in.
Right.
And then I have to wait for someone to come over and let me in, and so I'm wasting your time.
Yeah.
You know, and like if I have the cart, like it's usually only 2 trips that way, but it's still extra annoying. So I try to, like, if there's sometimes the cage gets full of people waiting to get in. Mm-hmm. And if you are a long haul trucker who has a delivery to drop off or to pick up.
And I have been.
If you need to be unloaded via forklift, you wait till they have time.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that sit in the cage just waiting
mm-hmm.
to even be allowed in.
Sure.
Like, fortunately, they don't necessarily recognize me as Patrick Brower from Challengers Comics, but as a guy picking up for Diamond, mm-hmm. or picking up their Diamond order. That's why they just say Diamond and then let you in.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure I could wiggle my fingers through the small holes in the fence to press the magnetic lock myself, but uh-huh. I haven't, because I don't want to get caught doing that.
Sure.
I don't want to lose my
because then there's going to be a new rule.
Right. And I don't want to be that guy. Uh-huh. Admittedly, there have been twice, I think, in our 10 years where I transposed numbers on the check, but like in the change department. So it's like, instead of 82 cents, I wrote 28 cents.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're guilty of that twice, but not even a dollar amount's worth.
Right.
From there, I usually stop at a gas station around the corner, because gas is as much as $1 cheaper, because I'm in the suburbs at that point.
Instead of in the city, which is so much more expensive.
And I usually wind up literally filling up every week at that gas station.
It's useful.
I used to go in and get their horribly bad for you, but so delicious chicken rollers. Mm-hmm. They're like little logs of processed chicken with cheese in the middle, uh-huh. rolled into breadcrumbs, and
you can just buy
spun on those.
Salt. You can just buy it on its own,
spun on like a hot dog cooker, because they were so delicious. But sure. I don't do that anymore.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Then sit in traffic on the way back, because the way back is always considerably longer than the way there.
Sure.
Occasionally, uh-huh. like this last week, on the way back, like less than a 2-mile trip out of the way is specialty store services, where we get a lot of our shelving or grid wall or hooks or
fixtures
price labels. And so I had called to head over there this Monday to pick up some stuff. And get back on the highway and come back to the store. Usually I'm back around 1 o'clock.
Sure. While Patrick's doing all of that, I've got a couple hours where I'm doing stuff in the store. Now, I've got, on any given Tuesday, there's a bunch of things that I need to do. But the routine ones in regards to the new shipment that's going to be coming in is essentially prepping both the pulls list for Patrick to make sure that when he gets back, he has that to work on and it's ready to go. So there will be a little stack of all of the individual subscriber pulls, the totals for every item that we need to set aside for subscribers, the week's invoice so we can check off of that to make sure that everything is there that's supposed to be there and that quantities are accurate and prices are accurate. The price gun, so that if he needs to price any products that don't have prices on them, he can do that. A box cutter so that he can cut into all the boxes. And a pen, so he can write down stuff that he needs to write down.
The box cutter also helps me make me feel just anything.
Sure. On a Tuesday, it's especially necessary to feel something again. In addition to that, stuff, kind of prepping stuff for Patrick, I will also be making all the spaces necessary for the new books for the week. That means pulling down any remaining comics, graphic novels, toys that have been up in the New This Week section for a week. Putting them where they need to go. So comics are going to go on the comic shelves. Graphic novels are going to go with the graphic novels. Manga with the manga. Sidekicks with sidekicks. Toys wherever toys can go. So we have a completely blank 12-foot section of the New This Week area. Then I'll pull down from the comic racks all of the out-of-stock cards that we have behind every title that's an ongoing title. Then I'll take those and I'll file those on the New This Week wall, kind of where everything should go. So there's enough space for the graphic novels, enough space for any specialty items that are going to go in that section, and then all the comics are kind of where they're going to be. So that, way at the end of the evening, when all the comics are ready to go on the New This Week rack, they can just go up there, they're ready to go, all the spaces are made.
I think the trade-off for the way we do it now versus the way we used to do it is that I think it's a little bit easier for you to cycle what was new that's now normal into the shelves, but it takes you longer at the end of the day to put the new books out.
Kind of. One of the things that I do Mondays is a kind of an additional zero step of all this, which is pulling down all of the previous week's out-of-stock cards so that they can get filed back in to the comic wall. And then at that point, I'm reallocating all of the space on the comic wall. Like, literally all of it moves to accommodate whatever stuff is going to, like new titles especially, that are going to go into the comic wall. Because in any given week there could be 3, 4, 10 new titles that don't have a space on the comics wall. So everything has to shift to make room for those spots. There can even be weeks, like a week or two ago, where we had, 6 covers of Action Comics 1000 left over that needed to go on that wall. So 6 new spaces have to be made, and that means shifting everything to accommodate those spaces. So the cards will go up so that on Tuesday, all of the out-of-stock cards from the previous week have already moved. So it's basically just taking the comics off the wall and then putting them onto the spaces that have been made on the comics wall, and then pulling the new out-of-stock cards off of the comics wall and making spaces for them on the New This Week section. So everything's just moving things from one section to another every single week. All of that stuff has to move, and all that stuff has to be accommodated so that when books are ready to move into that section, the spaces are already made. That's the key thing. So you're not spending time trying to juggle these stacks of books and then where is this stuff going to go?
I legitimately didn't know that you put the cards out on Monday while leaving the books up until Tuesday.
I do.
Nice.
And
that's
sometimes
a
that
nice
means
little extra step for you.
Like, sometimes there's things where that book didn't get a card because it's a one-shot or because it's not something we're going to carry regularly, so I have to make sure, like, I've got to pull a copy of that with the cards so that when I'm making spaces, I know this book has to go there. Otherwise, you've made spaces and then you're putting stuff away and it's like there's no extra spot in this section now. So all of that prep work is going on, some of, again, the zero step is going on Monday, and then everything else is going on Tuesday, kind of in that couple hours while Patrick's getting the books, so that I have time to do other stuff during the day. That's kind of I want to make sure that stuff is done so we can start the process of receiving the product. And again, there's other things that I might do on a given week. That could be sending out subscriber emails about upcoming books. That could be working with Patrick R., who's our helper from Easter Seals. That could be, doing literally any, like an order could come in from a supplier, anything else, helping customers, 1,000 other things. But the prepping for the new books has to happen during that time. In regards to all the time that the 2 hours I might have before the books show up, the bare minimum is this other stuff has to get done. And then anything else hopefully gets done or gets pushed to later in the day. Like sometimes there's, after 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I'll find time to do this other stuff that didn't get done.
And you're also doing all your full-lung deep breathing because you're more relaxed, because you're on your own and I'm not there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about...
It's very zen.
The podcasts I'm listening to by the time I get there, bleeding in.
Well, by that point, I've already listened to Surviving Creativity, so that when you are listening to it, it's not ruining it for me later.
So, the...
Talk is Jericho, Surviving Creativity.
Come
on. Colt Cabana's podcast.
Art of Wrestling.
It's
2 other people you're skipping.
Marty and Sarah, who love wrestling.
And each other.
And each other. Well, hopefully, they'll love wrestling forever. Who knows with 2 people? I hope for those 2 kids' sake, but I'm not going to make any promises.
Sure.
World's a crazy place, Patrick.
But you've just heard all of the gales of laughter from Surviving Creativity already, so that's why they grate on you a little bit more.
Specifically,
not Corey,
Brad,
not Scott, Brad Geiger.
That was a question I had for Patrick because there's a very distinctive laugh from one of the participants in Surviving Creativity. And it reached a point where I finally broke down and said, "Who is that? Is that Scott Kurtz who's laughing that way?" And you supplied that it was Brad Geiger, and so now I can recognize Brad Geiger's very distinctive laugh on Surviving Creativity.
Why you grit your teeth?
He is a very happy boy. Is what I know most about Brad Geiger.
They talked about something last week that I wanted us to talk about, but not right now.
Was it receiving books on Tuesday?
It was ordering books. No.
Anyway, so by this point, I've done my stuff, Patrick's done his stuff, and now we're both back in the store.
Yes, so we both unload my car, stack up the books and sidekicks.
Oh, one of the other things we do is we pull down the blinds and sidekicks, because sidekicks is where we do all of the receiving, basically.
Yeah. The checking in, the sorting.
Yeah.
And I don't like, A, the sunlight and the heat, and B, people stopping and staring.
Sure. And we started doing it when you had vertigo, and the peripheral motion of cars on the street was troublesome. So that started from that and then has had additional benefits down the line, so we keep doing it.
Now I just prefer it.
Yeah, now you're used to it. It'd be weird not to have it.
So I set up 2 folding tables on opposite sides of the store. One of them is where I do my unpacking. The other is where the club books and shelf books wind up going. We've got a couple of boxes that we've strengthened and taped up that are specific sizes, that are different shapes for the books that go out on the rack versus the books that are set aside for club. And then I will take a box, cut into it. It usually has 4 stacks of comics. I take those stacks out, put them on the half-size bookshelves in Sidekick. That's where I do some of the sorting. Like the box, so there's a stack of boxes from Diamond. Next to that is a folding table, and the box that I'm taking out of is on that folding table. I take the books out of one of those boxes and put the 4 stacks on a bookshelf.
Yeah, you kind of work in a cube.
Yeah.
Where at the top and bottom of the cube, they're folding tables with boxes on them. Either boxes you're taking books out of or boxes you're putting books into. And then to the left and right are the bookshelves, and you use those as little processing tables.
Yeah.
Either that's where like the invoices might go, so you can check stuff off, and that's where your Bluetooth speaker is. And then on the right side, that's where you're taking books out of to start separating what goes to subscribers and what goes to the rack.
It's a little bit different now because one of the sides of the cubes is wide open because we don't have bookshelves in front of the Spider-Man and Deadpool.
Sure, currently.
So I'm working around that, and it's funny how over the years we've done so many different ways. There was a point where I would do all the sorting and processing in the garage.
Yeah.
Which sucked in the winter.
I think the best version we had for you, and the one that was one of the saddest things to lose, was when it was the gallery.
Yeah.
Because the gallery we can just close off for the day. We put up a little velvet rope. You had the whole room.
Yep.
You could put tables wherever you wanted. You could put boxes wherever you wanted. You could be as messy or as clean as you wanted. It didn't matter.
My least favorite time of the year to process and sort the new books is spring break, because that's a month as far as Chicago's concerned.
Sure.
And there's piles of stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And spring break is when families bring all their kids in and they come right into Sidekicks,
Yeah.
which they should.
It's very difficult to close off Sidekicks.
But the only thing that people ever want to see is the exact thing you're working on.
Yeah, we have an internal. I don't know if it's a joke or just like a little thing. Rule number 1 is wherever you're working, that's where someone needs to be. If you're shelving books, the shelf you're putting books on is the exact shelf that someone needs to get something from or wants to look at. If you need to go file something on a shelf, someone is standing in front of the shelf that you need to put stuff on. So internally, when that happens, we just look to one another and go, Patrick, what's rule number 1? And we don't say anything after that. There's no follow-up, because it's just, that's what happens, and it's not clear why it happens, but it always does. So yeah, like if Patrick is doing stuff in Sidekicks on Tuesday, A, that's when a family's going to come in. B, the only shelf that a kid's going to need to look at is one that he has something right in front of. They're not going to need to get to the corner that he's not in. They're going to need to get to the 2 shelves he's in front of.
And there's piles of books, and some of the, like, there's a pile of variant covers, if we have any, or restock for the shelves, or my pile, the books I'm going to buy. And that is the pile everybody wants to see, specifically my pile.
And one of the kind of additional things is that some of the podcasts you listen to can occasionally be
profane,
not store appropriate, nothing we would play in the store. But since you're in Sidekicks and you're tucked away, and honestly, Tuesdays are not super busy days for us, so the odds of a bunch of people overhearing something that might contain language they weren't expecting is almost nil.
Now, to be fair, even on this podcast, we dropped some F-bombs here and there.
You did tonight,
but it's not. Hey, did it really?
You did.
I don't even remember it.
You did. You'll hear it.
Oh, all right. Wait.
You did.
What do you mean I'll hear it?
Like when you edit this, you'll hear
Can
it.
I listen to it? I have editing down to a science where I don't need to
look for words.
Yeah. I can tell by the audio files, like by the structure of the file, what I have to cut out.
Okay.
Which is difficult when A, you have a cold.
Sorry.
B, I'm interviewing somebody else, because it takes me the whole podcast to figure out.
The waveform's super different.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah. Or last week or the week before, we left the heat on.
Oh, so that background noise is
so that messes everything up. Messes everything up.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I'm sure there were extra ums and ahs last week because there's no visual breaks for me.
Sure.
Yeah. But honestly, like off panel with David Harper, David never swears. His guests will occasionally.
Yeah, I try not to, but
Cabana swears.
I don't think F-bombs necessarily get away from me, but some other stuff, if I get a little heated or if it's something where I'm not paying as much attention, then it can definitely get out.
Yeah, Marty and Sarah right out.
Oh yeah, sure.
They're just filthy.
Yeah, but Surviving Creativity, I know I've heard some stuff on there.
Yeah, you have, and it which is fine. It's how they talk.
Yeah,
but
I don't nothing against the podcast at all. It's just it's an environment where you're trying to get work done, so you're listening to something that's going to help you work. But then if an 8-year-old kid comes in there, it's
I have
like
to stop it immediately. Yeah, I don't even hope for the best.
No, because you haven't listened to it, you can't know.
It's not like a song's coming up where we just cough over the offensive word.
So anyway, you're doing all of the unpacking at this point.
Yeah. So I get a stack of books and I separate it based off of how many we need for club, and that goes into one set of boxes alphabetically, and then the rest go onto the shelf box alphabetically. However, the alphabets are different for each of those boxes because the pulls list is done in strict alphabetical order. For example, Hunt for Wolverine goes under H.
Yeah.
Yet on the shelf for us, we'll put it under W for Wolverine, so then I have to put that into W in the shelf box.
Yeah, and sometimes with the subscriber lists, it's done off of how Diamond titles a book. So it might not even be strict alphabetical in the sense of what word they choose to go first. 99 times out of 100, it's exactly how you would think it would be alphabetically. But sometimes there can be a misspelling or some sort of discrepancy that causes it to land someplace else on the list than anyone would have put it. But it has to go In the spot it is on the list, because when later in the night, when I'm doing the individual pulls for people's subscriber spots, it has to be in the order it is on the list, or I'm not going to find it in the box.
Right.
So yeah, that's super dumb, but hyper specific to how the task is done.
And honestly, titles that have "the" in them are sometimes difficult because it's random how they do it. For example, the 12 from Alterna is under T.
Yeah.
But the Damned is under D.
It is now, but there were issues of the Damned that were under T.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and sometimes that can shift around before Diamond figures out what they're doing with it. And then retroactively, they'll change titles.
So I go through all of the boxes. I try to do the merchandise boxes first, because that stuff can get priced and set aside, or sometimes we put it out early just to get it out of the way because if it's bulky or
you'll
whatnot.
bring it out to me, and then I'll go into the computer to make sure that prices are accurate, that everything is... If a case of blind bag figures comes out...
Cases of toys or blind box figures have one barcode in our system, but for us it'll have 8 different barcodes if it's, let's say, a Marvel Legends, or 24 pieces associated to it if it's a blind box. So we have to separate that out. And the annoying thing is that if it's a blind box barcode, it's usually the same barcode on the box as it is on each individual piece. So in the system, it's automatically set up to be inventory quantity of 1 at $172.
Right.
When in fact it is inventory quantity of 24 and $9.99 a piece.
Sure.
So, that's the way it is with the NECA graphic boxes we sell. The Superman, Batman, Joker boxes that we have. They're one item code, and sometimes if we don't change it at the right point, it reverts back, and you go to ring up a box, and it's $66 for somebody.
Yeah, what we're ordering from Diamond is not a 24-piece case. We're ordering one case, no matter whatever it is in there. So that's what we're receiving, and that's what's in the system. So we have to go in and individually create items so that you can buy one blind bag figure, one graphic box from NECA. And that's something that we do once we receive the items. It's very difficult to reliably set that up ahead of time because you don't 100% know how the quantities are going to work, what the barcodes are going to look like. So when you have it in hand, you can do it, but that means for that stuff, you have to do it in hand. So Patrick will unpack it, he'll price them because he's got the price gun, and then he'll bring them out to me to both check in the system and then put on the shelf if they can go on the shelf.
Slightly off topic, one of the ways that bothers me the most is we have the ability in our system to take a product off the shelf and put it on hold for somebody in their box. So when we ring them up, it populates in their box saying, oh, this issue of Avengers #1, they didn't subscribe to it, but we can put it in their system as a special order. You can only do that for barcodes that Diamond has in their system. So when it's a case of toys and there's 8 figures with 8 different barcodes, but they only have a parent barcode from the case they're part of, you can't scan that item and put it on hold for somebody because that specific barcode doesn't exist in Diamond system.
Yeah, you can't put a Gwenpool figure on hold for Marvel Legends because Diamond doesn't have a listing for a Gwenpool figure for Marvel Legends. They have a listing for the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Lizard Build-A-Figure case. That's it. So that stuff like that, we have to old school write a note, put it in someone's spot, and say they've got this figure waiting for them in the back. It won't come up on their order when they come into the store, when we're ringing them up, but we'll have to remember to go get it.
So when that's up, when everything is checked in and sorted and separated properly, Dal and I then bring all the boxes to...
One of the other things that kind of goes on while you're doing this is I will occasionally go into the other room and
Get a Transformers comic.
I'll get a Transformers comic. Could be Lost Light. Well, you've been very good recently about bringing out Lost Light and Optimus Prime.
Because I don't want you coming into my area.
And Transformers versus Visionaries. Because you don't like me going into the area and disturbing your very specific work setup.
So there was 2 weeks ago that every time Dal came in to either get the graphic novels to bring out or to take some of the restock or whatever else, I would just scream at him, "Get out! Get out! Get out of here!"
And there's a point where you're kind of getting joke yelled at, and then eventually it just feels like you're getting real yelled at, and it stops being as funny.
I'll be honest, I felt that line cross, and I just went with it.
You just kept going.
Yeah, I actually made myself mad at you by doing that.
Cool. So method. Yeah, since I've done a lot of my stuff before 1 o'clock, I kind of have this...
You're faster than me, we get it!
...period between 1 and 3 where basically, like, Patrick is doing the bulk of the work on the stuff from 1 to 3, and then I'm doing the bulk of the work on the stuff from 3 to 5. So I have this period from 1 to 3 where I can work on other projects, I can answer emails, and sometimes I just have a little time on my hands, so I'll eat lunch, I might grab some books as he's unpacking them to say, like, oh, I'll get a chance now to read Batman, to read Mr. Miracle, to read sometimes non-Tom King books, and that way...
But only if you're forced.
That way I'll have time...
It'll be Tom King first at all choice.
When I have the books in front of me, I won't feel like, oh man, I gotta see what happens in this issue, because I'm a fan too. Like, there are books that I get excited about reading, again, like Transformers Lost Light or Optimus Prime, where I want to know what happens next, or things like Batman or Mr. Miracle, where I'm so excited to see where that story goes next, that if I had it in front of me and I had something else to do, I would probably put off the thing I had to do to read that comic book real quick. But one of the other things I'm doing is taking the graphic novels that are going to the shelf, bring them into the other room, into the main Challenger store, and checking all the barcodes to make sure that the barcodes match the title and the barcodes match the price. More than anything, there are discrepancies each week where a graphic novel has changed price from when we've had it in the system to when it's actually arriving. A $15.99 Marvel graphic novel is suddenly $17.99. Or
with no added content.
Yeah, or a $19.99 hardcover is now a $15.99 softcover from another publisher.
Yeah, not from Marvel. Definitely
so
not.
all that stuff, we have to make sure that that's right. So I'm doing that, and I'm getting the graphic novels kind of ready to go. So that then, as Patrick said, once everything's done in the other room, then we start bringing stuff out into the store. We're done with the sidekicks part.
Yes, and I just figured you would jump right into what you did.
Okay, sure. So we bring the boxes out, and so behind the counter we'll have the shelf copies boxes, and we'll have next to that the shelf copy graphic novels. So all that stuff is right there. Then on the side counter, the one facing the door when you come in, that's kind of a work counter for the store. It's the easiest one to kind of spread stuff out and work on. I'll have moved the spinner rack of enamel pins and anything else that might have been on that counter, giveaway comics, promo posters, candy, whatever. That counter is clean. It is ready to go. So we'll put on that counter the subscriber boxes, or I should say the boxes of comics for subscribers for the current week. That could be anywhere between 2 and 4 boxes of comics. It's, it could be a lot of stuff. And then a pile of non-comics subscriber items, graphic novels, magazines, t-shirts.
Anything that's either A, not a monthly subscription, or B, too big to fit with the comics.
Yeah. So basically, if it's flat, t-shirt, something like that, we can put it in the subscriber boxes. If it's too big for that, we'll drop a card in the subscriber spot, although it should be on their list when it comes up on the computer. But this way, if someone is taking out someone's subscriber books and they don't know that they have an oversized item in the back, there will be a little backer card that will say someone's last name, the name of the statue or action figure that's waiting for them in the back, and then that it's in the back. So when they're pulling out the subscriber books, they can go, oh, we had this pop vinyl for you as well. So you don't have to wait until you ring someone up to go, oh, there was another thing that we had for you and I didn't know.
So hopefully while they're making a lap around the store, we can run to the back and get it, so it's waiting for them at the front when they come back up.
Usually, though, you and I, since we're intimately familiar with the things we've received that week, know right when someone comes in, oh, that person had an omnibus in the back. So one of us goes and grabs it right away. So most days of the week, we don't even need the card, but the card is there for people besides you and I who might pull someone's subscriber books out and need that reminder. And
also, if they don't come in that week, I'll forget by the next week.
Yeah, and occasionally it's a thing of like, why is this thing in the back? The thing in the back will have a Post-it note saying the person's name on it, but Post-it notes can get lost, and you can look it up in the system, but at least this way, like, oh, here's this thing I need to go get. So on the counter facing the door, we've got all the subscriber books for the week, and then I'll take one box at a time from the subscriber boxes we have behind the counter with all the dividers of people's names in there. And I'll have the pulls list. It's itemized what each person's getting. And I'll just spend 2 hours going through the list and saying, okay, this person needs Batman and Superman and X-Men Gold, and I'll take those 3 books out of the alphabetical boxes that we've got for the subscribers. And then I'll take them and I'll look at the list that we've got, and it'll have a subtotal for each person. Let's say 3 comics. So then I'll count up what I've got in my hand to make sure I've got 3 comics. If I have too many or too few, I'll relook at the list to make sure that I've pulled the right things. Drop them in the subscriber spot and move on to the next person. You just keep going through the list until you get to Zines, who's the last subscriber right now. And at that point, anything you have left is a discrepancy. The books that we have set aside are for subscribers. If there are books left over, some subscriber did not get their book. Or, less often, the books were miscounted when they were being set aside. So,
well, I admit
19 copies of a book were pulled instead of 18.
Pretty often, I mix up the piles of shelf versus club.
Yeah, they just get put in the wrong of the 2 boxes.
And for as often as you realize that happens, I catch myself doing it so many different times.
Sure. I've had to do that part of the job in certain weeks, and I've done it. And I know to look forward to it because I have seen the result of it, and yet I still will do it.
When we used to separate the books, Marvel, DC, Independent, it was a little bit easier than it is to do everything strict alphabetical.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of rearranging. And it's just this, it's like a dyslexic thing where I will just put the wrong stack in the wrong... I have the numbers separated,
Sure.
right? I just put the wrong box.
It doesn't happen all the time, and I'd say it
No,
rarely
but what
happens
what
more
I'm
than
saying
once
is
a week.
I catch it numerous times
Well, I'm just saying, like,
before I do it.
slipping through your fingers, not catching it, it's never more than once a week, and it's not even an every week thing. But at the end of it, if I've got 2 or 3 comics left over, and sometimes I have nothing left over, everything's perfect, I've pulled right, you've counted right, we're good to go. Occasionally there's a couple, 3 books left over, and this isn't us like tooting our horn necessarily, but when I see that happen, I check. I say, okay, I've got this copy of X-Men Gold left over.
So you pull up X-Men Gold on the system and
I
see
see everybody
who
who
gets
got it for that week.
And then you track down...
I check every single box to say, okay, did this person get X-Men Gold? Because sometimes it's a thing where, okay, we had an extra copy. Now I know for sure this can go on the shelf. But sometimes it's, oh, X-Men Blue came out this week, and for that one person I pulled X-Men Blue instead of X-Men Gold. There was the right number of copies going into their spot, so I didn't catch it. But now I realize that they should have gotten Gold and not Blue. So there you go. And usually I'll know because that it's a discrepancy that I need to correct, because late in the run suddenly it'll be like, I don't have enough copies of X-Men Blue. I got to grab one from the other box. I should have enough. So that's a clue of like, oh, somewhere along the way I switched these two. And so often now there can be multiple similar titles coming out.
Yeah.
That it's easy to kind of make that mistake quickly looking at a list. You're pulling, the wrong variant cover, or you're pulling the wrong of the 2 Avengers titles that might have come out that week or whatever. But we do make sure that stuff is corrected, because getting the subscriber stuff right, if there's one thing I could tell people who are looking to open a store, like what do you need to know, I would say that is the most important job of your comic shop if you have a subscriber service, is making sure those subscriber books are right every single week. You're not going to be right 100% of the time, but man, if you can be right 99.9% of the time, you're going to win a lot of goodwill.
We get a lot of new subscribers from stores that, like, people I like the store, but they always mess up my polls.
Yeah. The quickest way to lose a subscriber, to lose a customer who wants to continuously spend money with you, is to pull books out of their spot because you want to sell to someone who's in the store right now instead of the person you told you would have it for them. To miss stuff on the subscriber list, to not pull books for the week. All these things that we hear people doing where it's like, man, that is the easiest way to make sure that person does not want to come back to your store.
There was one time I took a book out of a club member spot and sold it to somebody who was right then and there, who had never been in the store before, but I really wanted to impress Tim Meadows and to give him a really good shopping experience. And it was that once-in-a-while situation where, oh no, that book is unavailable, I can't get it back. However, that club member wound up being delinquent and never came back in.
Oh, win-win.
So it worked out okay, but that's a huge reason why we never do that.
Yeah, and I know the reason why stores do that a lot of the times is to make a sale right then and there. Better to have $5 now than $5 a week from now.
Or and to impress somebody.
Yeah, and also to impress someone. And the impressing thing always struck me as really backwards, because if I was at a store and they're like, oh, let me just grab it from the subscriber and you can have it right now. Oh my God, would I never want to be a subscriber at your store? I could be that guy. who got their book just sold out from under them when I thought, you told me last week it was going to be here for me, and now suddenly it's not. So yeah, we would never do stuff like that if we double check to make sure all the polls are accurate. Again, there are times we're going to be wrong. There was someone recently where I had pulled them the wrong Action Comics 1000 annual, and again, double checked, everything was fine, but somehow that cover slipped the net, and they got the wrong cover. Luckily, we had a copy of it still left on the shelf. It wasn't a big deal. They got the book they were looking for, but I felt really bad about it. We take a lot of pride in making sure that stuff is right, and it's just basic nuts and bolts running a comic shop things, but I feel like that's the thing that a lot of people, either through negligence or through boredom or through greed, overlook, and it's like, oh man, please don't ever do that.
This is the attention to detail that you used to put forward. You would have to merge the Comixology list and the Comics Week list every week.
I want to make sure stuff is accurate. I go through the emails that get sent out on Friday to subscribers. I go through them Wednesday night to make sure that it says what it's supposed to say. That if someone has a duplicate listing, I go out and I take out that duplicate listing. So when someone gets an email, they don't think they're getting 2 copies of something and need to email me to say, oh, I only wanted 1. I want to make sure that that's taken care of before they even see it. So by this point, subscribers, it's like 6 o'clock at night usually.
Well, first of all, I want to say that for whatever reason we lose subscribers, nobody's ever going to quit shopping with us because we routinely mess up their polls. Because we don't. Yeah,
that's definitely a thing that, again, we're not tooting our horn, but it's something we do take pride in. It's a thing that we try to make sure is, something you as a subscriber or customer never have to think about because we are spending a ton of time thinking about it.
Meanwhile, while Dal is pulling the club books...
What are you doing from 3 to 5:30 or 6?
I am receiving the invoice through our computer program, and
That's not the first thing you do. What do you do first? Like, I'll read comics and stuff when you're checking in boxes and stuff. What do you do when you come out of the room?
I mean, I was given my list of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, all right, I have to fold up the tables and put those away.
Okay.
Bring all the boxes out to the back and leave them in the back hallway for Kent to cut them down on Thursdays.
Sure.
Unless I know he's not able to, then I'll cut them down myself.
Sure. And sometimes people ask us to save them.
Sure. But when that is done and I have everything back in, usually the first thing I'll do is print up the new release list for the counter, make the new release file that we use in the Apple TV along with the events file that's at the monitor by the register, and then what is it? What is the service we use? Not a Fire Stick, the
Chromecast?
The Chromecast. Set up the file to the Chromecast, which is the monitor that is over the actual new releases.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of usually like the Wednesday before I will put the images in, but it's actually going through the list of what is coming out versus what we're going to have on the shelf.
Yeah, because by Sunday and Monday, I will make a lot of changes to the actual list of what we're getting in to reflect what's subscriber only versus what's going to be for the rack. And I'll leave that list for you so you can make those changes on the monitors.
When that's all said and done, then I'll receive the invoice, which is pulling down the invoice from Diamond with them telling us what we're supposed to get, and then going through and making any changes, whether it be damaged copies we got, shortages we got, listing overages we got.
How are they doing lately? I mean, how do you feel they're doing?
They're doing fine. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was a period we were short something every week, but it was never. Once it was, hey, we're short Avengers, which sucks because it's a weekly book. But they honestly got our replacements in a week.
Yeah.
When normally it's 2 weeks, and that could be an issue. We're never really shorted. Like, we're never shorted Mr. Miracle. Right. We're never short Saga.
Yeah, we've never been shorted something they can't replace.
Or we don't get Black Hammer, we get Aquaman.
Right. Still got a lot of copies of that issue of Aquaman. They haven't asked for them back yet.
They have. They're on there. Okay. That's the pile of return books on the counter from today. And then at the same time, going through and doing the returns for returnable merchandise, whether it be because solicitations changed or it was returnable initially, and filling out those forms, submitting them through this website, and then physically tearing the covers and sending them back, which is part of the return process. Yeah, so receiving, new release lists, returns. At that point, when all of that work is done, if it's a previews week, like it was last week, I grab the store copy of previews and go sit in one of the red chairs and go through and do all the marking up that we've talked about in the past about how we like, I'll circle the books that I want us to order. But if it's not a previews week, I take a stack of books that I want to read but don't want to take home, and I spend the rest of the day reading comics.
Yeah. I'll usually, when the subscriber stuff is done, like most weeks, Patrick is done with his stuff and ready to go sit and read or work on previews before I'm finished pulling subscriber books. So I'll keep working at the counter, and then when I'm done, I put the boxes away that I've been using. I clean off the counter because it's gotten dirty. I put all the stuff back on that counter. I'll go wash my hands because they are filthy by this point because I've been touching nothing but ink paper for 3 hours. They are almost soot black. Then I'll come back. I'll prep anything that we need to do for non-subscriber special orders for the next day. So if someone has requested a book, they're not a subscriber, but they've requested a book that's coming out that Wednesday, I'll set that aside. I'll put a post-it note with their name and number on it so that first thing on Wednesday they can get called. I'll go through the special order book and see if any subscribers have special orders for things that we've received new printings of. So if it's like a new printing of Thanos, I'll find it in the book. I'll cross it off, I'll put it in their file, I'll put it on their subscriber list. So that stuff will all be ready for them. And then I'll usually have 15 minutes to half an hour where I can, catch up on email or read a book or whatever. Or just kind of wind down the night until 7 o'clock. I think that's all I do. It sounds right.
And then at 7 o'clock, I will close out the register while Dal will put out all the new product.
Yeah, there's a minor thing I do right before 7 where I'll take the graphic novels, because those are largely just in a pile based on size. And I'll separate those out for, like, Marvel superheroes, DC superheroes, image graphic novels, art books, manga books, kids books, so that stuff, no matter how they're shelved on the New This Week section, they are kind of like books or with like books. And then I'll get those ready to go out. So at 7, those can just go out, and then I'll take the boxes over to the New This Week section, put out all the books because the spaces have been made, so they're ready to go. And yeah, then at that point, everything's on the shelf, ready to go. We're ready to open the doors at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, and everything is ready to go. You walk in the door, the subscriber books are ready to get sold, the rack books are ready to get sold.
The Dunkin' Wake Up wraps are fresh and hot.
Yeah, ready to be eaten. So good. And then first thing I'll usually start calling on non-subscriber special orders that are there. So those people at 11 a.m. can know, hey, the book you asked for is here waiting for you. It's on hold. Yeah, that's pretty much Tuesday, I think. And then getting home Tuesday, exhausted. Just super exhausted.
Yeah, it's a long day.
It's a very long day. It's maybe more tiring than Wednesday is, I think.
Wednesday is more tiring in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, it can be more exhausting just in the amount of interactions or lack thereof, which is the most exhausting part. But Tuesday is the most actual effort. Like, that's the most carrying and shelving and pulling and checking in and all that stuff.
Why did you make a point of me saying things out of order Tuesday?
I was just curious. I mean, because you don't... The first thing you do when you come out of the room is
the first thing I do is sit down and sign into my email and usually look up to see what happened on SmackDown the night before, because I don't watch it.
Sure. I mean, that's
wait, no, that's Tuesday. Or it was Tuesdays. No. Look up what happened on Raw.
Right. Wednesday you'll check. Wednesday at lunch you'll check out on SmackDown.
Yeah.
But no, I just meant that, like, usually one of the last things you'll do before you read books is actually fully receive the order.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff you do prep-wise before you get to that point. I was not trying to throw shade.
I thought you were specifically trying to lead me to going to wrestling websites.
No, I mean, you do, but I mean, no, it wasn't the direction I was going in.
I don't necessarily, if I already, like, read it Monday night.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong if you do. Like, there's things where I will hold articles that I want to read until after I've helped you unload the boxes, and after I've eaten lunch, where I have a little window where it's like, well, I don't have anything pressing I need to do. I'll read this article from the AV Club or Polygon or whatever.
So we just took 8 hours worth of work and condensed it into 1 hour worth of verbalization.
Yeah, there you go. You were there.
There you are. It's a life experience that you get to share with.
Yep. So think about that when you think about, boy, it'd be fun to work at a comic shop. Yeah, it's a lot of physical, repetitive work.
Oh, man, you want physical, repetitive work. That was all day today. But leading up to Free Comic Book Day, it was mainly prep work for Free Comic Book Day, and I feel like there's more prep work needed this year because of the out-of-town guest we have that'll take me away from specific things that I would do differently.
Sure.
But I mean, that's like more than half the time we've had people from out of town in, so it all depends on
it'll work
travel
itself
schedules. That's just my way of reminding everybody that Saturday, May 5th, it's Free Comic Book Day. We will have Steve Lieber. We will have Ryan Brown. We will have Max Baer. We will have Zach Lehner. They will be signing and sketching all day. We will have, in attendance, preferably outside where it's nice and sunny.
Yeah, maybe not warm, but definitely sunny.
Psylocke, Rocket Raccoon, Deadpool, possibly Jessica Jones. We will have the Phantasm from Batman the Animated Series, Mask of the Phantasm.
Ooh, our Angel of Death awaits.
Yes, indeed. And
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And we will have Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Yeah, that's a very fun one. That was a special request we made of some fine folks who shop at Challengers who had done that for C2E2, and we're like, hey, do you still have that costume?
We will have photo opportunities with the life-size Deadpool, Spider-Man, and Batman Arkham Knight. We will have the Stranger Things standee you could stick your head into.
Oh, cool.
We will have 50% off of a huge selection of Archie Comics graphic novels.
Yeah.
And that's their modern-day teenage line, that's their horror line, that's classic stuff.
So if you've been enjoying Riverdale and you want stuff like that, we'll have the Riverdale graphic novels, we'll have the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is what the upcoming Netflix series is based on. We'll have Afterlife with Archie, we'll have Mark Waid and Fiona Staples, Archie, we'll have the award-winning Jughead series from Chip Zdarsky and Erica Henderson and Ryan North. Tons and tons of stuff. And they're all, like Patrick said, half off, 1 day only.
1 day only.
So definitely come out then and pick those up.
I mean, if we had the space, I would love to put them out now.
Sure. But we're saving them. It's Free Comp Day.
Right. Free Comp Day.
People are going to have that experience as well. Yeah, it should be a really fun event. This is our last episode of Contest of Challengers before Free Comic Book Day. So definitely our big reminder to folks listening to this. If you're in the Chicagoland area, or you can make it to the Chicagoland area for May 5th, come on out to Challengers. If you're not anywhere near the Chicagoland area, go to your local store. You can go to freecomicbookday.com, I believe, for a store locator. You'll be able to find out what stores in your area are participating in Free Comic Book Day, and any special events or sales they might be having. Stores can list that on the store locator, so you'll hopefully be able to find some fun stores that are doing some fun stuff. But yeah, definitely if you have time on May 5th, stop at a comic shop on Free Comic Book Day. The stores that are doing it, I get excited about it. I get excited about seeing new faces and meeting new fans, and hopefully, making some relationships that'll get people to come back into the Challengers on non-Free Comic Book Days. Yeah.
And to all of our fellow retailers who listen to this podcast, Godspeed. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck.
Have a great day.
Hang in there, kitty.
It's always it's usually our biggest day of the sales day of the year, but it wasn't last year.
That's true, it wasn't.
But last year was also the best one we ever had.
Yeah, so. It was great. I had nothing against 2017's Free Comic Book Day, and very excited for 2018's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
Oh, look, it's a bonus part of the episode. I am here with Kent Challenger, whom you all know as the person who runs Thursdays at Challengers. But did you also know that he owns his own toy design company called Doomco Designs? What's up, Kent?
Hey, Patrick.
Tell us about Doomco.
So, Doomco Designs is a small 3D design, 3D printing, and casting and molding studio that I started up about a year ago. Basically, we specialize in mass-produced toys alongside custom-made statues. Primarily, we design in Oculus's new program called Oculus Medium, a VR app, which kind of puts us at the cutting edge of where design for creative purposes meets manufacturing.
If anybody listening was lucky enough to be here during our Jack Kirby 100th birthday celebration last year, Kent and his associate Josh had brought their whole rig with and let people play around with it. And it was my first time in VR, and it was pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing thing to be immersed in another limitless world while standing behind a table.
And hey, it beats staring at a computer screen for like a solid 4 to 6 hours at a time. So
the reason we're talking to you today is because you have a new thing available for pre-order right now.
I do. Tarbus the Tardigrade, the world's first designed entirely VR product.
How do you know that you can say that?
You know, I'm playing this a little fast and loose, but I've done what I think is enough researching on Google and the internets and stuff to be comfortable making this claim.
Like, don't you think if it were in fact provable, Oculus would want to get behind the publicity and be like, yeah.
They are to a degree.
Okay.
Let's just put it like that.
Okay, so
I can't get into more detail.
That's fine. But so first of all, tell everyone what a tardigrade is.
So a tardigrade is a water bear, a microscopic little organism, I guess, that is quite remarkable. It can presumably survive in the vacuum of space, absorb an absurd amount of radiation for a creature that small and survive, barely needs any food or water, and can actually go into its own hibernative state to basically keep surviving.
Now, as far as I can determine, having done zero research whatsoever, this is the first ever tardigrade toy.
That it is, yeah. Over the past year, I've been a little obsessed with Japanese-styled soft vinyl toys, and since there's a huge market for kaiju and creatures and monsters, I figured that this would be a great first product to capture the ethos of our company as well as try to tap into that marketplace.
You've done a lot of other 3D modeling, and you did the Challenge Giraffe for us, Rothschild Challenge Giraffe for Free Comic Book Day last year, and you post on Instagram often a lot of 3D renderings. You did some. Did you post? Like, can I talk about some of the ones that you've done? Do they all go up on Instagram?
For the most part, yeah.
Like Grubzo, was he up there?
No.
All right, then I won't say anything.
I think so, but we'll keep that for later.
Sure. And you printed out a statue of from Curse Words for Ryan Brown and Charles Soule.
Yeah, we did a Botchko the Hogtar based off of the cover of issue 2 of the series, actually. Fun fact, I saw that cover and was like, I can make that. I want to make that. So the rest is history.
So you took a 2-dimensional image and turned it into a 3-dimensional, 1/12 scale image?
Yeah, I would say more 1/6 scale.
I don't know how big hogtars really are in life, so
yeah, you and me both.
I just estimated.
Quite fair. But yeah, goddamn, it was a bitch turning in a 2-dimensional reference image into a 3-dimensional thing.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's our job, you know.
Sure.
So made it work.
Sure. All right, so back to Tarbus?
Tarbus the Tardigrade, yes.
What size will he be?
He is 3.5 inches tall.
Okay.
So basically the width of your average business card.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he is soft vinyl.
Soft vinyl.
Is there a specific name for that style of toy production?
Sofubi, actually. Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was
portmanteau
copyrighted or not, if that was somebody's Xerox or Kleenex.
No, it's...
That's why I let you say it.
It's just a portmanteau of, the Japanese term for soft vinyl, I think, as well.
As well as Fubi.
Yeah, right. There we go. I'm blanking on what it actually is. So
that's fine.
I'm not going to, go there.
And the availability of this creature is multiple colors?
Yeah, we've got 5 colors: a red, a yellow, a green, a lilac, and a flesh tone.
Creepy.
Delightful.
And where can people see this or pre-order this?
So the pre-order is currently up now at doomcodesigns.com/Tarbus-the-tardigrade.
No one can spell Tarbus or tardigrade.
Tarbus and tardigrade, Tardigrade. I almost screwed up myself there.
That's fine. That's fine. And I understand Tarbus was actually with you at Challengers last week.
Yeah, he is. I think he might be scuttling around the store somewhere, maybe. Either that or I took him home already. But
so if anybody wants to see him in person and they come in on a Thursday, you'll be able to perhaps produce that.
Yeah, very much so.
And where are you on social medias?
Just Instagram.com/DoomcodeDesigns. Part of me is thinking about trying to expand our Facebook reach, and the other part of me is actively thinking about just shutting down Facebook altogether.
You mean the platform as a whole, not just yours?
I mean both.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
And that website again?
DoomcodeDesigns.com.
Or DoomCodeSigns.com. Both get you to the same place.
There we go.
Thanks, Kat. Best of luck with Tarbus.
Thanks, Patrick. See you guys on Thursdays.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.